The 90s were a time when comic books wore their attitude like a leather jacket, loud, rebellious, and allergic to subtlety. And standing proudly in that chaos was Image Comics, founded in 1992 by a band of superstar artists who collectively said, "What if we made Marvel, but everyone's extreme?" Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson walked out on the big two, that's Marvel and DC, to form their own empire of guns, muscles, and pouches. And for a hot minute, Image ruled the comic shelves. So naturally, Hollywood wanted in. After all, if Batman the animated series could redefine cartoons for a generation, surely Image could do the same thing, right? Well, that's what they thought until their shows crash harder than a Liefeld anatomy sketch. It's 1994. Jim Lee's WildC.A.T.s is one of Image's biggest hits. Fox Kids decide to adapt it into a cartoon, hoping lightning would strike twice. Maybe even steal some of that X-Men audience. Instead, what aired was X-Men, the Bargain Bin edition. The original comic was violent, cynical, and bursting with intergalactic conspiracies. The cartoon, however, replaced all that with kid-friendly quips, moral lessons, and animation that looked like it was fighting against its own budget, and lost. Sure, there were laser guns, but no blood. Punches were thrown off-screen, and the catchphrase, "Let's just say they aged about as well as a Mountain Dew commercial." WildC.A.T.s only lasted 13 episodes, which in television years is basically thanks for trying. Next, Eric Larson's Savage Dragon, the tale of a buff green cop with a mohawk who punches mutants between shifts. It actually lasted 26 episodes on the USA Network, but it's still a mystery how. The comic was unapologetically violent, borderline absurd, and proudly adult. The cartoon, on the other hand, was a Frankenstein monster of conflicting tones. It wanted to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Law and Order, and The Tick all at once, but ended up feeling like Saturday Morning Cops, Lizard Edition. It wasn't bad enough to be infamous, just bland enough to be forgotten. The biggest crime Dragon ever solved was how to make kids switch channels to Power Rangers faster. In 2006, Japan decided to take a swing at it with Witchblade, the anime, produced by Gonzo Studios. This reimagined the premise of a futuristic Tokyo with a new protagonist named Musani Amaha, single mother by day, barely clothed bioweapon by night. And you know what? For all its fan service and melodrama, the anime actually understood what Witchblade was about: legacy, loss, and the burden of power. It was pulpy, emotional, and unapologetically weird. In short, it did what the American versions couldn't: commit to a tone. While it wasn't a mainstream hit, it earned a cult following and became one of the more respectable examples of East meets West comic adaptations. So, why did all these shows stumble? Simple: identity crisis. Image Comics was born out of rebellion, anti-establishment, violent, creator-owned anarchy. But kids' TV in the 90s wasn't built for nuance or gore. It wanted heroes who taught morals, not mercenaries who snapped necks. Networks sanitized everything until it lost its edge. What was once revolutionary became just television wallpaper. And without the deep character legacy of Marvel or DC, Image's worlds lacked staying power. Each adaptation existed in its own disconnected universe, which made cross-promotion impossible. Meanwhile, audiences have moved on to Batman Beyond Spider-Man Unlimited, and eventually the live-action superhero renaissance. Image's window closed before it really opened. Ironically, the only Image property that worked in the 90s was Todd McFarlane's Spawn on HBO, not Saturday mornings, because finally someone let Image be what it was meant to be: dark, violent, and unfiltered. Decades later, Invincible picked up that torch and proved that an Image comic adaptation could thrive when it stopped pretending to be for everyone. These newer hits owe a strange depth to the failures that came before: the WildC.A.T.s, the Dragons, and yes, the Witchblade that paved the way. So in the end, Image Comics' animated experiments were less revolutionary and more rough drafts. They tried to fit Adult Rebellion into a Saturday morning box, and the box won. But to keep it a buck, these shows kinda deserve respect. They were bold, bizarre, and beautifully misguided. They proved that failure isn't the opposite of innovation. Instead, it's the first step towards something bigger and better. Because for every WildC.A.T.s that flop, a Spawn or Invincible would eventually rise, and often remind us that sometimes the wildest ideas just need the right decade to work. Should the Image cartoons get a revival or a reboot? Please let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching, and also make sure you subscribe, give a like, and share.